What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys that was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, Nightmare Success listeners, we are back. And, we always talk about on this show what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt? How do you survive? Do I have a treat for you guys? It's a first for me. This is a story about someone who, had a life. It was on the streets. It's drug dealing. He went to juvenile for 4 years, went to prison in Leavenworth for 3 years, grew up in Leavenworth, and now Jermaine Wilson is the mayor of Leavenworth. I can't wait to get into this story. And before we do that, I want to introduce our new sponsor for the show, Auto Plaza Direct. And, who likes walking around for a couple of weekends on car lots, looking for a car? You finally find a car, and then you got to go into that dealership for 4 to 5 hours. It's kind of like going to the dentist. Well, there's a better way. There's a better way to take away all that pain for getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They are your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price and deliver that car to you. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the new car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Okay, folks, here we are. Jermaine Wilson, welcome, my man.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. So I want to give a shout out to Jim Clark because Jim Clark actually connected us all up. So Jim was my first guest on Nightmare Success over a year ago. So it's all full circle. So Jermaine, man, what a story. To be able, and we talk about, when you go through your worst fear, how you handle it, how you survive, how you adapt. But what you've been able to do after you've gotten through all that is really incredible. And I want to go back a little bit so people can understand where you came from. What was life, because you grew up in Leavenworth, am I correct about that?
Correct, yes, sir.
So what was life for you like growing up in Leavenworth, Kansas, as a kid?
So just kind of going back to the beginning, I was actually born in a small town called Kennett, Missouri, the hometown of Sheryl Crow.
Yes, it is. And went to Mizzou.
Yep. And so, my dad was in and out of prison. Our neighborhood was drug infested, and my mother, she was 20 years old with 4 children. I was the youngest child. And so she just looked around, and one day she just said she needed something different. I had a uncle who served in the Army in Leavenworth, Kansas, and he hadn't informed my mom about Leavenworth. And so she just wanted something new. And so when she packed up all of her belongings and her children, she moved us to Leavenworth. She didn't realize the apartment complex that we were moving into was the ghetto. It was low government housing area, but that's one part of it. Yeah. But once you live in that community, you realize like the crime, the drugs, the poverty, it was really having a huge impact on so many people's lives. And as kids growing up, we were exposed to this. Sure. And my mom was working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet. But every time she would leave, my brother and I, we snuck around the neighborhood, and that was the time that we got exposed to what drugs were, gunshots, violence. And so we were accustomed to that, and it became our norm every single day.
Jermaine, how old would you have been in that time period when you were just kind of sneaking out, going around the neighborhood when seeing those type of things?
And I was 5 years old.
Oh my gosh, man. That's a lot for a 5-year-old to see.
Yeah, and my brother was 7 years old. And so I was like the young buck on the block. And so, everyone was like, hey, let me go ahead and turn him on to this, and thinking it was cool, but not realizing how detrimental it was and how much of an impact it was going to have on my life.
Well, and I'm sure, going into a new place, not knowing very many people. And then that being what's going on in the streets, I'm sure it felt like they were, kind of taking you in. You were becoming part of something. It probably didn't feel that strange. You were getting connected to the neighborhood. So, Jermaine, tell me, like, when things start, as you start getting older, and like, what was school like for you? Were you involved in school? Was it an escape for you? How did that world play in for you when you were growing up?
Yeah, so growing up, I was short, and I always had this insecurity about myself just because I never could fit into the popular group. And so therefore, I would always, try to be a class clown, end up getting kicked out of school just because I wanted to seek that attention and the approval amongst my peers. But it was always difficult for me to adapt in school because every single year we had to move just because my mom couldn't afford the rent or the owner of the house refused to, renew the lease. And so with that, at all the children, I was the one that always had to switch schools every single year. And this happened all the way into middle school. And by the time I was in middle school, that's when I got introduced to doing drugs and also committing crimes.
So when that started to happen, and I can't imagine, that would have been really difficult to move as a kid at that age, just from school district to school district and get it to a new school. Because I think, am I right that when you got caught as a kid, I don't know how old you were, but you went through like 3 or 4 years of being in that system.
Yeah, correct. The first time I committed I broke in a house at the age of 12 years old.
Okay.
I was given diversion, and then I continued that life of crime just because of the attention I received from my peers at school. They embraced me. I got a chance to start hanging around the older kids. They thought it was cool, and I continued that life of crime. And at the age of 15, I committed a robbery charge, was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile corrections. Then, I started thinking about the movie Escape from Alcatraz. I thought it was a good idea to try to escape. I tried to escape, failed in the attempt, and was sentenced to an additional 2 years. So from 15 to 19 years old, I gave up my entire juvenile teenage years just because I wanted to fit in and be part of the popular group. I lost myself trying to be like everybody else. And during my time of incarceration and juvenile corrections, I adapted to my environment. I got involved off into the gang lifestyle.
Yeah. So I'm curious, at 15 years old to that 19 years old age, I mean, it's such an impressionable age. And what were you thinking being in that environment? How were you getting by being in an environment like that? I don't even think most people know what juvenile detention's even like.
Yeah. And so just imagine you got a bunch of teenagers, testosterone's through the roof.
Yeah.
Everybody got a chip on their shoulder. And for me, just because I knew that I was going to have a hard time, just because, I'm still short, immediately I learned how to fight. And so my fears turned into aggression. And anytime that I was faced with any opposition or anyone tried to, as we would use the term, check me, immediately I will fight. And so with me being the first one, always ready to fight, my reputation started to grow. And as my reputation grew, that respect for my name started to increase as well. And that's when, I started making a name for myself, even though it was negative, but I used it as a way to protect myself.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, is that leadership can be bad and good. I mean, but what you have inside you, people will follow. And it kind of leads to where you are today, because that you flipped the script and started using those leadership qualities in a way that really benefited the good. So you get out. How does this affect your mom and that whole world with the family? How are you still connected to all that? How's that working?
Yeah, so my mom would still come up and visit me whenever I wasn't in segregation. And I kid you not, this I know God is real. Every time one of her children got locked up, my mom had another baby.
Oh my gosh.
And my sister got locked up, my brother got locked up when I was locked up. And during those 4 years, my mother had 3 different children. And I realized, the babies came so she wouldn't have to be depressed and always thinking about us.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. But she never gave up on us. She continued to pray for us. She continued to provide for us whenever we were in need. She gave us resources. So that love and connection was there. My dad had came back in the picture as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, he would visit. It was just always tough. And my mom knew that I was a good child just because, you know, she knows her children.
Yeah.
But she knew that I was always trying to fit in. And that's what made it difficult and challenging for me in my life. But she kept saying, son, I'm not going to give up on you. She
didn't give up on you.
Yeah, no, she didn't. And so when that time came for me to get released from juvie, she was there to pick me up. Her and my father was. Yeah. And they took me back to Leavenworth.
So, Jermaine, when you got out of that world, how long did you last in the outside world before you got into your own nightmare again?
Man, I was only at 18 months.
Oh, man.
When I came home, I had made up in my mind that I was going to become one of the biggest drug dealers because I felt like that time that was given to me in juvenile, those 4 years, I felt like my time was robbed from me. Yeah. I felt like I didn't deserve it. And so I had made up in my mind that I was going to make up for lost time, not realizing it was going to cost me more time. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to my old neighborhood. By this time, you know, I can live on my own. I'm 19 years old. Mm-hmm. I ain't nowhere in the world I'm about to stay with my mom and dad. And so I went back to that same environment that taught me life of crime is okay. Yeah. Being disrespectful to your parents is okay. And the individuals who didn't write me, who didn't put no money on my book, I considered these individuals still to be my friends because they showed me what I thought was true love, but it was really fake love. They turned me on to the crack cocaine game.
And, you know, I think that so many times on here, Jermaine, we've had stories like this. You know, it's people, places, and things. You know, if you don't change your people, places, and things, then it's so easy to stay. It's almost like handcuffs that bring you back, and you can't set yourself free because you're in an environment that's comfortable. It's something that, you know, changing people, places, and things is a thing that's really hard because you have to step out of that comfort zone.
Correct.
So when you got back into this and these people feel like your friends, but they're not really your friends, but it feels like family. Walk me through the nightmare of getting caught again after 18 months and what's going through your mind.
So God blessed me with the son. And, you know, during the time that I'm hustling, I was with my childhood girlfriend. I got a baby now. And in my mind, you know, I'm thinking like, man, I don't want my son to live this life that I'm living. So what am I going to do? Well, I have to hustle harder. I got to make more money. I got to make sure that he don't live a life of crime and poverty. So therefore, you know, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing on a higher scale. But it was just the wrongful thinking because my girl was telling me to stop. Your son needs your time, not your money. Yeah. But I didn't take heed to that. And because I wasn't mature enough to understand where she was coming from, you know, I just started focusing on, you know, trafficking, you know, instead, because it got too hot for me in Leavenworth, started going to different states. Mm-hmm. But man, deep down, when I would go to sleep at night, man, I would cry. Just because I was feeling empty inside. I was like, man, like I really want to quit, but I don't know how to quit. And I kid you not, I knew that I was going to get locked up and it was just a matter of time.
You could feel it.
Waiting for that time to come just so I could quit. Because I felt like if I would have quit, I would have been letting everybody down that was connected to me, that I was supporting, and I felt like they needed me.
Yep. So when you get hit, is it a knock down the door, we've got you, or is it an investigation that goes on and you just feel it's going on and someday they just tell you to come down and they take you?
Yeah, man. So it was an investigation that was going on, and I never forget the day when I was leaving the apartment complex. My girl was saying like, hey, your son wants you. He's crying on the floor, wanted me to pick him up. She's saying, don't leave. I said, this is my last time. And I'll be back. I got to make this run.
Last run.
When I left, man, didn't realize the cops were waiting on me. They seen me. They were actually at a call. They had a group of officers at this one particular house. They seen my vehicle, and they just knew that I had everything on me. And they followed me a couple of blocks down the street. And I never forget the day they hit their sirens and pulled me over, found everything in the vehicle.
Wow. So what's going through your mind, Jermaine? Because you know this is big. This is, you know, that doesn't happen every day.
So I'm like, man, this is it. They got me. And, you know, when they locked me up and in my mind, I'm like, man, I gotta get out. I gotta move this. I gotta move that. So I bond out. My girlfriend comes and bonds me out, and I go back to doing the same.
Oh no.
But not realizing this case is pending.
Yeah.
Not realizing this case is pending. And I only did that for a few more months, man, before I ended up getting busted in a different state with more drugs. And they shipped me back to Leavenworth. And that's when I knew that it was over.
Yeah. So when you get into this, do you have, what kind of representation do you have? You have a public defender? Do you have like?
I'm not.
No,
I had a little bit of money saved up.
And all right.
The money that I saved, you know, you realize like, man, like all of this is for nothing because now I got to use it to fight all this case.
For defense. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, you know, I got a lawyer, you know, he was representing me. The problem was it was just too much against me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now I get busted in a different state. And now I'm trying to, you know, go for drug rehabilitation, trying to use the excuse as if I got a drug problem. But that was not the case. And when I realized, like, if I did not take the plea and I try to go to trial, you know, I'll be spending more time, you know, than actually what I would have, you know, if I would have just took
I think
spend this time if I took the plea.
Yeah, Jermaine, I think that's one of those things where people don't even really understand that process of coming to grips with the plea. Because I was just talking to a guy the other day, and he's been out. He's on probation, but he got into another situation that he's been fighting, and he really wanted to fight it. But when it came down to it, he really was scared about going back into that courtroom. And so he took a lesser plea. He's going to be on probation and he'll get, but I think the scariness of looking at additional time or going back to prison, that's why you see so many, 95% of the cases that plea out, because you look at the scary, the scary look of it. And especially if you've been to prison, you can survive prison, but you certainly don't want to go back.
Correct. And especially if you knew you're guilty. So I'm like, I'm going to waste time trying to fight this case and knowing that I'm going to get more
you're
time.
Guilty. Right.
Take the plea knowing that I'm guilty because, I told him myself, you know what I mean? There was no one else involved in my case. So this all falls on me.
So this is kind of interesting, though, because you end up going to prison basically in your hometown.
Yeah.
What's that like? I mean, did you when you walked through those gates, did you know and connect with people that you knew from the streets?
Yeah. So I don't know how familiar you are with the state prison. So when I first got locked up, I was in RDU in El Dorado. Then they shipped me to Norton, which was 5 hours away from Leavenworth. And they said, the only way you're going to get out of Norton is through fighting or programming. And I heard about the program Prison Fellowship. And that's when I was like, man, that's in Lansing. And so I can get closer to home.
Yeah.
So I signed up for the program. I was in Norton for 3 weeks. When I went to back to Lansing, man, I knew everybody.
Yeah.
The guards I went to school with, I was well known in my community. My nickname Too Short. It's like, man, what's up, man? Welcome here. But the program is in the Max facility. Yeah. And so I'm just like, this is like, what in the world's going on? But I'm at my hometown. So immediately those negative thoughts start running through my mind. And I could do this. I could do this. I know everybody here. And so, it took a couple of months, man, for me to calm down and not pursue those negative thoughts that was running through my mind.
Well, Jermaine, that had to be a conscious effort on your part, though, because it would have been easy for you to fall into that. What was the strategy in your mind to say, no, I'm not going that way?
Man, one, I was sober-minded. Two, I realized while I was sitting in my cell one day, if I don't change my life, my son's going to follow in the same footsteps. The legacy that's been handed down from generation to generation within my family has always been crime, drugs, and incarceration. And so I'm sitting in my cell and I'm just crying. And I'm like, God, like, if you real, like, come into my life, I want something different. I'm tired of being a loser. I'm tired of being a failure. I don't want to be a mistake. And I don't want my son to follow in the same footsteps that I've already laid. What am I going to do different? And that's when I realized, man, I have to change my life, because kids not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do exactly what they see. So if I can be that example, that positive example for my son, and I start walking out the right path, then he's going to see exactly what it takes to do the right thing, because his dad is leading the way. And I just had to start with myself.
Wow, that is so powerful. And, it's always so interesting to me how a moment, in that moment, I'm sure is vivid to you, how you just explained it. It's almost like that rock bottom moment almost takes you down to your soul, that this is the time. This is where I break the mold. This is, how you explained that, Jermaine, so powerful, because you had to completely break away from everything that had always been and step into nothing that had been.
Correct.
And that became your new world. So as you changed your mindset in prison, how did that change your world in prison? Like, did you start hanging out with different people? Did you start doing different things? How did that work?
Yeah, so I really started hanging out with the older individuals, and a lot of them were lifers.
Yeah.
They're never going to get a chance to see daylight again, and they felt like they missed the opportunity with their own children.
Yes.
And they said, brother, man, you remind me so much of my son. You're around their age. All this information and wisdom and knowledge that I have inside of me that I'm not able to give to them, I'm going to give to you. And at that moment, I just didn't listen to the knowledge. I began to apply it. And that's when the wisdom started to take place in my life. Wisdom is knowledge being applied.
Yes.
So I stopped using profanity. I started going to church. I started really studying my Bible. I started reading self-help books. I just became disciplined, and my thinking started to change. Once my thinking began to change, my outlook began to change. And when my outlook changed, man, I started having different outcomes of life. I no longer entertained the negative conversations. I literally started talking about things that I was going to do once I got out, not the things that I used to do. And so, life and death is in the power of the tongue. I started speaking, positive things into my life. And that's when it really started to happen and transform my life. And when my girlfriend seen the difference in my life, she came back in my life. My son came back in my life.
Everything started going good.
Yeah. And so I'm like, man, I'm doing the right thing. I'm serving God. Yeah. I'm being a positive role model in prison. Man, let me keep this up, because this feels the reward good. Is much better.
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah, and it does feel good. And that feeling that's inside of you, it becomes contagious. And when people really start to gravitate to you because of the positive energy inside of you, you realize, like, man, I can lead people to do positive things instead of negative things.
Yeah, and see, you had always led. It was just that you applied this new you and started leading towards the good and making a difference. And this is a story, Jermaine, I didn't say this in the beginning, but you've been on Good Morning America. You've been on CBS Morning Show. Yeah. There's a reason why, though. People love to see, because I think it's because they hope it in themselves. And
correct.
Your story inspires hope that you came from, and you had love from your parents, you had love from your mom, but the streets and where you were getting accepted and what you were going to do with your life, that became your life. And to break, correct. But the inspiring thing about it, I think what people really like about a story like yours is that you had that moment. You knew you didn't want that. You took wisdom, you took mentorship, and you just broke away. And what you've done with your life since then is what people hope for. And I think that's why your story it resonates so well with all the people you go out and speak with. When I hear your story, I am inspired, and the fact that you're able to use that and get people to get there. So many things in our world right now are all the bad stuff. It's you turn on the TV, everything's bad. All the world's going, to hell in a handbasket. People are looking for stories like yours because they want to be inspired by the hope of change. So Jermaine, tell me this. So all this starts happening good. You're living a different life in prison. You start getting close to the door, knowing that you're going to get out. What's going through your mind in that world, in your mind thinking, I'm getting close to getting out?
Man, I really started to get excited. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't worried. Man, I was excited because I'm like, man, I'm really going to make a positive impact on my community. And I just started to tap off into my gift. I have the ability to communicate, the ability to connect to people and make people feel good. So when those prison doors opened up, you know, man, I literally, everything that I had planned and prepared, I started to implement the first day that I was out. I started to work my action plan. It wasn't like, hey, take me home, we about to celebrate. No, take me to my PO, take me to the workforce development department. So I get these food stamps, all the resources that was available and free to me. I made sure that I did that. And then I went home and chilled and relaxed with my son and with my son's mother. Day 2, hey, started looking for jobs. I knew that I had no time to waste because, you know, the idle time's the devil's playground. And I had made up in my mind that, man, I'm preparing for success. So therefore, I need to take these steps that's going to lead me to the direction and the goals that I'm trying to achieve. And it took me 3 weeks to find employment, but I worked it every single day. You know, even when I heard individuals tell me no, I realized, man, no doesn't mean I'm not qualified. It simply means next opportunity.
Yes.
And so when I found the right opportunity.
I love that. I don't want to gloss over what you just said. No means next opportunity. I love that.
Yes, sir.
That should be a t-shirt.
And literally it just, you know, once I got that right opportunity, it opened the door to many more opportunity. I maximized it to the point where it was time for me to step up and do something different. So the more that I began to serve and give back to my community, I didn't wait. I started to share my story. That juvenile facility I escaped from, I tried to escape from, well, I went back and became a positive role model and example to those kids just by sharing my story and letting them know you don't want to go to prison because this is the truth. This is the truth, what goes on behind those prison doors.
You know, Jermaine, I want to go into because a lot of times the guys, because it's hard to get out. It's hard to get a job. And you have to have a certain mindset. What you just said, next opportunity. When you finally got the job, did they know about you? Did they know about your situation? Because I think that's one of the things that if you can, guys that get out, they need to get good about telling their story and what happened to them and why they're different, why they're better, and that they because of their story, they're going to be good going forward as an employee and loyal and whatever. But obviously you got very good at that because you got employed, but then you started doing the speaking and engaging. And I've got the nonprofit organization is called Unity and the Community Movement.
Yeah.
How did all that come about?
So I got released from prison December the 9th, 2010. And so as I'm serving in my community, my church community, inside of juvenile correctional facilities, and even went back inside of the prison in Lansing, became a mentor, I was just praying and asking God one day, I said, God, what's next? What's next for my life? I know you showed me that you're going to use me to be a leader in my community and impact the prison system, but what's next? And when I turned on the news, all I seen was just racism. I see, just the division that was taking place in our country, all these different organizations from Black Lives to Blue Lives. I was just seeing all of these things. And I'm like, okay, I get the message and what people are trying to say. I said, but I don't see anybody becoming unified. We're supposed to be the United States of America, but during this time, it seems as if we are the most divided country in the entire world. Yeah. And so, and I said, God, man, I want to impact the world. And then he showed me in a vision, man, you got to start right at home. The need for change is national, but we have to start right here at home. And I said, man, what is it? Unity. We need to be unified. And so when I realized that I need to work on unifying my community, I reached out to the chief of police and said, Chief, I want to meet with you. I met with him. I told him the idea that I had. I shared with him that people in our community need to see you and I serving together. Yes. People need to see us on the front line. They need to see Blacks. They need to see whites. They need to see the police department inside of the community making a positive impact. And so we did the youth versus the police department basketball game.
Did he immediately get it? I mean, was it?
Oh, well, he looked back, he sat in that chair like this,
Yeah.
and he got to thinking. And so he started to see it. And then he already knew my reputation from back then into the man that I am today that's right before him.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right.
Knew you were the right voice.
Try it.
Yeah.
Let's try it. We can't lose by trying, but we can lose by not doing nothing.
Yeah, no, but Jermaine, that's a big deal because I mean, you picked up the phone, went and had the meeting, and talked him into something that was a big deal. I mean, it's turned into that. If this could happen all over the country, what a different situation we'd have. So, correct. So what all started happening with this?
Yeah, and so the day of the event came, like. So the funny thing that led up to it, people was like, man, you out here passing out flyers, promoting the police. I was like, what's going on with you? And I would just tell them, I said, man, we're trying to bring this community together, and this is the first step. And so, once I was able to drown out all the music, I continued to focus on the mission and the goal. When the day came to the event, we had 200 plus people on the north side part of Leavenworth, which is the urban part of the community. Mm-hmm. And, we had the police department, fire truck came out. We had the homeless community. We had children. We had rich folks came out, church leaders. So we had everybody that came out to this event. And you've seen blacks, you've seen whites, you've seen brown, you've seen all types of people in one place. No gunshots, no violence, no cursing. The basketball game is going on. Kids are having fun, laughing, high-fiving the officers. So it was a positive impact. That moment right there, people started to see that, man, this is possible. We all are unified. Man, this is what unity is supposed to look like. This is what our country's supposed to look like. Man, this is amazing that this is happening right here in our own community, Leavenworth, Kansas.
And a simple concept, too.
Simple. Bringing people together. We had food giveaways, clothes giveaways, anytime you say promote free barbecue, that's going to bring people. And so, and at that moment, that's when individuals begin to ask the question, man, who put this event on? Man, we need this consistently in our community. Man, have you ever thought about getting involved in politics? And that's when I was like, no, that's the devil's playground.
Well, and the things that I read about you, Jermaine, it wasn't just a natural thing. I mean, what was natural is that you became a natural leader in the community. Correct. But you weren't seeking to be the mayor or you weren't seeking to be in politics. But I think was it your girlfriend or your wife at the time that said, yeah, maybe you should think about that?
I went look at you. I see you done your homework. So it was actually my friend Sean Cretton, and he's the one that actually opened the door for me to be able to go back inside the juvenile system and become a mentor. And he said, Jermaine, the way that you serve in the community, one day you could possibly become the mayor. And I'm like, yeah, right. And literally, and at that moment, it's like God checked me, like, why not? And so I called my wife right after that meeting, and I shared with her what this man had said. And she said, well, babe, possibly you can. And I'm like, man, I'm 5'2". She had me feeling like I was 7 feet tall at that moment when she said that. And so, but it gave me hope, and it reminded me, don't limit yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like what God has for you is for you, and nobody can take that away. And that's when I began to, prepare myself for what was ahead. And I knew at that moment that God had much more greater things in store for me. And I learned this a long time ago. If you serve to make a difference, the position will come. Yes. Because when that word was spoken to me at that time, it wasn't until 2 years later until I really started to pursue the political position. Yeah,
that's really something. And I'm curious because I've never had anybody on here. I mean, everybody that I have on here has had some event with going to prison. But as you ran for mayor, did that become an issue? That guy went to prison.
So look, it wasn't an issue in the until the results came out during the primary. It was like 11 people that ran in the primary.
Yeah.
And so when the results came out, boom, I'm in first place. And so everybody was like, hey, who the heck is this?
Who's this guy?
Yeah. And it was the elite group that was asking the questions. And so as they began to dig into my background, that's when it was like, hey, like this guy been to prison and all of this, like what's really going on?
Yeah.
And that's when individuals started to write negative articles to the newspaper and saying, no, if he becomes the leader in our community, he has a criminal record. Is he going to be biased? Is he going to be able to make the right judgment calls? Is he going to support our law enforcement? Mm-hmm. Well, that stuff started to hurt my feelings a little bit.
Sure. I mean, that's not fun.
Yeah. And then that's when individuals started to speak up on my behalf.
Yeah.
And say,
because you'd earned it. I mean, it wasn't like you just showed up on the scene. You had earned that all the way through, that you had connected the community and connected the law enforcement and connected the unity. So you had that back and that brought it all forward.
Yeah. And so, and it felt good that individuals were speaking up those positive things on my behalf. And then the newspaper posted an article that I did several years before where I shared my journey and my story. And they said, how are you going to tell on a man for being open and honest about himself?
Yeah. Like
everything that you're trying to use that's negative, well, he's already came out and said it.
Totally transparent. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so they said, we need an honest person in politics. That's going to be true.
Something new, man. Yeah.
And so the funny thing about it, so when it started, like it shifted and now it started getting support from everywhere, business owners, everywhere. And then all of a sudden, that's when it was like, when they couldn't find my criminal record because they started to do the digging. I forgot to mention my criminal record actually got expunged.
Yeah, I saw that 2015 or something. Yeah.
Yep. And so that's when they started to ask the question, is he just making up this prison story
to get elected?
Who wants to make up a prison story?
Nobody.
And so by then, that's when I knew. I said, man, you stay focused. Don't allow this to distract you. Remember what you're doing it for and who you're doing it for. And, when that time came for me to get elected, I received the most votes and came in first place. The support from the community was there. And, it was just amazing, a great feeling.
It's just a great story, Jermaine. When I heard this and Jim told me about it, I said, wait a minute, what? Wait. What happened? He's the mayor. Yeah. And then when I started looking at it, it all made sense. I mean, every step that you made, I can so see how people would get behind you because you're a positive force. And because of everything that happened to you before, it even makes it more authentic. You become maybe the most authentic guy in the room because you're not hiding anything. Everything's open. And because of your experience, you're uniquely qualified to say, hey, why don't you talk to this guy and this guy, this girl talk to this girl, and everybody come together because it makes more sense because you've lived it. And you're at the table. You're at the table talking. And the mayor at the table.
I'm at the table with my legs swinging.
Biggest man in the room at 5'2".
Yeah, man.
So, Jermaine, what do you like? Where do you go from here? Is this the thing that fills you up, and you're going to continue to do more of this? Is this Jermaine Wilson on a crusade to continue to unite and build, or what's kind of in your mind now?
So my goal now is to really touch the hearts of the people in the world and open the eyes of the people in the world to let people know just because individuals make a mistake doesn't mean they don't deserve a second chance. We all fall short in life. Yep. And I tell people, instead of falling backwards, learn to fall forward. When you fall forward, you acknowledge your mistakes, you learn from them, you grow forward, and you move on with your life. And so it's really just to touch the hearts of people and let them know at the end of the day, we are all human. We all need each other, and we all have to become united in order to be able to create the positive change that is needed throughout our nation. And so with me sharing my story, I really wanted to touch the hearts of people and let people know, man, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all trying to figure it out, and we all need each other.
So true, man. And I know that what I was reading here, that the book From Lawbreaker to Lawmaker, I love the title of that.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. From
Yeah.
Lawbreaker to Lawmaker. Is that available on Amazon?
No, not yet. So
Okay.
it's going to be available by the summertime.
Okay.
And that title came from it was a news anchor. She did my story.
That was the headline?
Yeah.
Love it.
And I said, ma'am, can I use that for my book? She said, please go ahead.
From Lawbreaker to Lawmaker. I love it. So anyway, Jermaine, that book will be out in the summertime. Okay.
Yes, sir. And I will notify you as soon as it come out.
And if people want to go and learn more about you, where's the best place to go?
Oh, gosh, you can actually go to YouTube. You could type in Jermaine Wilson Mayor. You can actually, if you want to reach out to me directly, just to have a conversation, or if you want me to come and speak at any type of venue, jwilsoninspiring@gmail.com. That's my email. Or if you want to get involved in Unity in the Community, unityInCommunity.org. And so, we're always trying to be a blessing and give back. Or if you want to go to my social media Facebook page, type in
I checked it all out, Jermaine. You're everywhere, man.
Hey, look, too short in parentheses.
I love that too. Hey, I always ask people this, Jermaine, because and you kind of led into it right before I ask you about the book. Out of everything that you've gone through, what do you think's been your biggest takeaway out there to tell the listeners of what you've lived to pay it forward?
Ask that question again.
What do you think's your biggest takeaway from everything that you've been through out there for the listeners to maybe learn something from what you've learned?
I'm going to sum it up in a quote.
Okay.
Don't be influenced by the negative things that are around you, but be inspired by what's inside of you. Greatness lies within each one of us, but we have to dig from within. If we don't come from within, we'll go without. Don't be afraid to be who God has called you to be.
That is why he is the mayor. Right there. I love that. That is a perfect way to sum up this interview. I mean, I've been so excited. I've been telling everybody I'm gonna interview the mayor of Leavenworth, and you won't believe his story. Yeah. So we got it out, Jermaine. I love it. And for those listening, love the likes on the social media, the comments. If you go to Apple, leave a review. That's a big deal. It's also great if you follow. You can go up to those 3 lines there and hit the follow on Apple. Or on Spotify, you can hit the bell to follow. That makes it easy for the show. Just comes up for the new shows. If you want to leave me a message, BrittCassidy.com, leave me a message there. I love to go back and forth with people on what their thoughts are. And let's see. And by the way, I got the shout out to the 200 prisons out there. There's 735 tablets, and it's on Edovo. Shout out to you guys. I bet you'll love this show right here with Jermaine Wilson. As I used to say when I was doing my emails from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Jermaine Wilson, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, man. God bless you.
Nightmare Success in and out.